Thank you, Ambassador Moshe. The only question I would ask, though, is that I hope this is not going to be an ITC project. I hope this is going to be a Tanzania project document which ITC can facilitate and learn from to replicate. So if we can make that one correction, I think then we can move forward. Now, the other issue, which we know is an issue in least developed countries, is that we have a number of countries that are facing crisis, whether they be political crisis, whether they be social crisis, or they may be facing crisis related to some kind of disaster, earthquake, flood, etc., etc. So we thought it was important as an instrument of understanding how we can move forward to look at this business of crisis and how to manage risk and crisis, as this is an industry which is very sensitive to both risk and crisis. So I'd like to invite to the podium Martin Roche, who is a partner in Etoile Partners. And I think what he does on a day-to-day basis is advise governments on how to manage risk. So, and I think also multinational corporations and others. So Martin, let's hear what came out of your session.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, the session was entitled Recovering from Crisis, and I faced two huge challenges before you today. The first challenge is to distill for you the tremendous amount of expertise, the ideas, the knowledge, the suggestions that came out of the work at yesterday's session, because I was surrounded by very, very distinguished people, all of whom have had direct experience of very, very considerable crises, many of them in multiple crises, particularly those who had worked for large private sector organisations around the world. So you really did have people, you were learning daily at this meeting from people who really knew what they were talking about and the size of the challenge that is in front of countries. The second challenge I have, of course, is reading my own writing. So we'll do our best. I think the single most important thing that came out of yesterday's session was the need for you to plan. Now, clearly, in the event of issues like armed conflict, it's almost impossible to plan, but you can plan for peace in some circumstances. But you can certainly, in many cases, with natural disasters, most countries know, broadly speaking, what type of natural disasters they will face. And so you have to both plan for the physical handling of a crisis, looking after your people and their health and as visitors, etc., but also the communications. Because if you plan your communications, how are you going to talk to the world and tell them about what's happened to you? It's tremendously important that you send a message to the world that you are confident and that you are in control of events as much as you can be. And that tone of voice, that sound of people who are in control sends a clue, sends a signal to the world that these are extremely competent and capable people. It will not reduce the world's sympathy and the world's effort to give you every help. But it does send a signal that you are people who know what you're doing and you're in command of the exercise. So you're actually beginning to plan for coming out of a crisis before you have the crisis. But you also need trained people, and the panel felt that it was very important that you had well-trained people and that they were among the brightest people you have in your country. So to get them training and to get them experience around the world is of a high importance. And again, this will help you present yourself positively to the world. We, of course, talked inevitably about the change in the communications climate around the world over the last 20 years, and it changes almost every day. It used to be that essentially governments were in control when things happened, but we know that's not the case anymore. We know that people are waiting with mobile phones, with laptop computers, and instantaneously, almost instantaneously, simultaneously things are being sent overseas. You cannot, you're not completely in control of the agenda now. So you cannot exaggerate circumstances. You can't say things have recovered when they haven't recovered, because somebody else will contradict you within seconds and often inside your own country. So that's tremendously important, and it's tremendously important to do all of these things because if I can use the analogy of great brands, and I'll use the analogy of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola tells you it's the real thing, and it tells you it's the real thing in every possible way, on its bottles, on cans, in its public relations, in its advertising, in its factories, in its offices, on vending machines. And we call that in the world of marketing and communication a proposition. And what it's to do is to give people permission to believe that by buying Coca-Cola, they've made the right choice. They're doing the right thing. It will both be psychologically right, and it will reward them functionally. So there's a functional and emotional thing going on, and all great brands do this. And as a tourism product, you also need to do that, particularly coming out of crisis. You need to give people permission to believe that you're stable, that you're safe, that the water is clean, that people will be healthy, and that, above all, that not only are they safe, that they're welcome, and that they will get a tremendous welcome. And I think one of the most important things that came out of yesterday that we all agreed on was that as you begin to get tourists back after difficult times, those first few hundred people, those first few thousand people are absolutely gold dust. To give them the best experience possible of your country will pay enormous dividends and will save you huge sums of money on marketing. I regret saying this as a marketing man, but it's true. And also, they will use modern technology to tell their friends all around the world what a fabulous experience you're having. So it's these people are tremendously important as you begin to recover from difficult times. They'll spread the word. I think the other and most important thing that was said was there are no two crises the same. And you cannot predict exactly. You can predict perhaps when a flood will come, but you just can't tell what damage it's going to do. And the best way of dealing with this is to use the international organisations, and I'll come to that in a second, but to talk to your friends, to talk to colleagues around the world, to talk to other governments, to gather as much knowledge and experience as it's possible to get about the difficulties you may face, so that you can try and foresee some of these difficult periods. Now, the principal outcome, and there's one that ITC and UNWTO were well ahead of the action, is that shortly, at some point in the next couple of months, the ITC and UNWTO will produce a toolkit, which is an enormous piece of work, and we heard about it yesterday from its authors, and a tremendously impressive and tremendously helpful piece of work. I understand it will be in the internet, so you can download it, and it's really a guide to how to plan for a crisis and the key things that you need to do in order to try and to mitigate the worst aspects of a crisis. You will make mistakes. Everybody will make mistakes. It's about trying to make as few mistakes as possible. And I urge you to, when this is available, to use it. Do not wait until you've had a crisis before you start to read it. Use it as a tool to train and inform your own people. And a further development of that is that those two partners will continue, and they will be joined by the International Labour Organization to refine and improve and look at what other issues can be done and how we can improve coordination and exchange experiences around the world. And it's very important, I think, that the International Labour Organization has enthusiastically come on board with this, because they will bring huge amounts of knowledge and experience of their own, but also because at the end of the day, we're all here to try and improve the lives of our citizens and to create better circumstances. And so it's right that there's a social element to all of this, because if there isn't a social element, there's no point in us being here. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.